Welcome to another screencast where this time we'll be discussing some functional, gross, and microanatomy of basically the small intestine. We're going to break this into three different screencasts here, real quick ones, right? So we're going to be focusing here on the small intestines here. So by the end of this, hopefully you'll be able to identify, describe here the gross and microscopic functional anatomy of, again, the small intestine only. Be able to describe and explain down here the role of the Plaque circularities, the villi, and then also microvilli. Okay, so here is the small intestine. It is the next part of the alimentary canal after the stomach, which we've been discussing already, and it is in grown adults here, it's anywhere from 2.5 to 7 meters long, and obviously the larger you are, generally the longer your small intestine, and can be broken into three regions. The first region, which is about 5% of the total length of the small intestine, is the duodenum. And so that duodenum here again joins, there's this pyloric end right here, so the pyloric sphincter located right here is the gateway into the duodenum. Excuse me. So the duodenum there about 5%, and duodenum again 12 finger lengths, the duodenum there, and so it's the shortest part. The next part, this highly coiled region here, is the jejunum, and again that follows the duodenum. There's no hard fast line between that duodenum and the jejunum, and the only way you would know is if you're looking at the lumen side. There, the tissue changes slightly, right? But this jejunum is roughly about 40% of the total length, right? And then that leads us then lastly to the last region or section here, the ileum, which is again the third region here, and this ileum is about 60% of the total length of that small intestine. This image here, the small intestine, actually before we do that, the distal end of that here is the ileocecal junction, and there's also a valve, small valve in here. Again, here's the ileum, and then this first part of the large intestine is the cecum. Right? So this is the ileocecal valve right here at the distal end, and the pyloric valve up here at the proximal end of that tube. So this image here is showing you in yellow this mesentery, right? And this mesentery is an extension of that visceral peritoneum, and the visceral peritoneum, again, it's an extension of that visceral peritoneum. And in class we'll show this to you on one of the fetal pigs. It's easier to kind of see it in 3 dimensions, I feel, than really on this 2-dimensional diagram here. But they've moved this jejunum and the ileum sort of out of the way, right? And so you can imagine this whole mass of tissue sort of being folded over this way. So you take that and fold it back over this way to kind of cover that mesentery. But again, that mesentery is suspending all this intestinal tissue from attachment point up here underneath the stomach, and also is connected to this large intestine, the colon area here. And in this mesentery you'll see lots and lots of blood vessels, right? And these blood vessels here are, these ones shown are arteries, right? Delivering oxygenated blood to the cells of this small intestine. So good idea right now to just maybe pause and take an inventory of this, going from the proximal end to the distal end of the small intestine. So gross anatomy there. We talked about the mesentery and some of the arteries here, and so if you look at this diagram here, you have the superior mesenteric artery right there, and this inferior mesenteric artery right here. These arteries are would be then delivering blood to the mesentery, right? and then also eventually to all the cells of that small intestine as well as the large intestine. Okay. So let's cut into this digestive tract here, the alimentary canal. And unlike the stomach, we're going to see, well, like the stomach, I should say, let's start on the outside and work our way in. Like the stomach, we're going to see a serosa, again, which is connective tissue membrane. then underneath that we're going to see smooth muscle, circular, and longitudinal. So this is unlike the stomach, right? And again, this is smooth muscle, and there are two layers there, smooth muscle. One that goes longitudinally along the length of this, and then one set of muscle fibers that go around there. So the contraction of those produces that peristalsis and the churning and the sectioning. Then deep to the smooth muscle layer, or the muscularis layer, you're going to see a submucosa, which has blood vessels as well as nerves in there, and then you will also then see an epithelium, and the epithelium here is a simple columnar epithelium, with goblet cells interspersed along there. The inside of that lumen, the wall there looks fuzzy a little bit, and these are the circular folds, which are analogous to the rugae of the stomach, and these are also sometimes referred to as the Plaque circularities. And so the Plaque circularities are these circular folds, and anything that's folded from this point on, so these folds here are greatly increasing the surface area, for the main role of this small intestine, and that is going to be absorption. Right? So we cut away there. Let's look at this image here of the duodenum. Right? And so here's the first part, again, of that small intestine. About 5% is the duodenum. We can identify a little opening right here, the minor duodenal papilla, and then an opening here, the major duodenal papilla. And these are all kind of microscopic, so you'd have to actually dissect this and look at this under a dissecting scope to sort of see these here. But these are the openings of the common bile duct and the auxiliary pancreatic duct, respectively. When we do the pancreas, we'll come back and talk about these a little bit later as well. Right? So there's a little bit there. Let's go and look now a little bit closer at those Plaque circularities, and as we zoom in on the Plaque circularities, we see that each of these circular folds here, right? Each of these circular folds here, we're going to zoom in on that. So this would be one of those folds. So if we look at the fold, then we see that the folds are folded, and the folds of the folds are called the villi. And each villus, so this is a plural, and villus is singular here. So each villus, so this would be one villus here, each villus has on its surface then individual cells, right? And those cells are simple columnar cells, those are epithelial cells. So at the base of the villus here, right, you're going to see a gland and a duct here, and so this opens up into an outside world. So this is an exocrine gland, right? Exocrine. And that duodenal gland there is going to be producing the secretions, which we'll discuss in another screencast. Okay, so this epithelium here, let's go zoom in on one villus, right, and look at that epithelium and a couple of other features there. So here's one villus, right, and each villus, of course, is lined with cells, and these are simple columnar cells. So again, this epithelial cell is a simple columnar. And now let's take one simple columnar cell. So here's a simple columnar cell, and this is going to be basement membrane down here, so loose areolar connective tissue there. And the cell membrane is folded into microvilli. So these are folds of the cell membrane. Now, these microvilli greatly increase surface area as well, because what's going to happen is these absorptive cells are going to actively be taking in nutrients, right, from the lumen and passing them to the bloodstream. Right? And so this arrow direction here, I will draw it on this diagram over here. So we're going from outside to in here into the bloodstream. Right? So this is the pathway of absorption of carbohydrates, of amino acids, of fats. Right? Now, the fats are going to go into this lacteal here. So each villus has a capillary bed in it and also has a lacteal or a lymph duct. Right? And these lymph ducts are blind-ended sacs here. I would recommend looking at a screencast on the lymphatic system that I made there to talk to you about the lymphatics. Right? And I think that's about it. Right? So you should be able to now describe the gross and microscopic functional anatomy here of the small intestine and describe a little bit about the role of the Plaque circularities, the villi, and the microvilli here. Okay, thanks for listening and bring your questions to class.